This is the Team Objection podcast for September 2nd, 2021, episode 496. It's been a Groundhog Day for the three of us, but for you may have noticed there was mysteriously no episode last week. And while I could go into a long rant as to why that was the case, the fact remains that it was some technological issues, and the whole episode was gone, save for Dave talking.
It would have been fun for people to listen to my reactions and voice for, 25 minutes straight. But it would have been only my reactions and voice.
Was it the whole hour of Dave just only him talking?
Well, it was a relatively shorter episode. In fact, we touched on a lot of these same topics. Now, I know longtime fans of the show are like, wait, but you guys suck when you retrench and you go through things that you've already done, and it's bad. It's actually going to be interesting because almost everything we talked about has new information since then anyways. So really, it's going to come off pretty fresh anyways.
It's only when we pretend that it hasn't happened that
True.
It's not so good.
Yeah.
Hey, Shaun, remember that joke?
Yeah. Recycling the same jokes. It was a valiant effort. We can't say we didn't try.
Whatever appeal we have, it is not from being actors. And I think that became clear in those situations because we just could not fake it. I think we do a good job of keeping things real. It's one of the appeals, I would think. If I was an outside person looking in, that was the opposite of what we were good at. That was just, oh yeah, here comes a punchline, and then like a big fist pump kind of setup, and it just doesn't work.
Chris doesn't speak for me, Hollywood. If you wanted to cast me in something, I think it would make a great actor. So.
I mean, never a better time to start than your mid-30s, right?
Harrison Ford started when he was some age. He was a carpenter, too.
Yes, he did.
He was a carpenter. How many episodes, if you had to guess, have I started while drinking this crusty old protein shake?
It's a disturbing amount, and the worst part that you do about it is that you take a drink and then have a point that you need to make, so the drink is still going down your throat as you're like, hey, wait a minute.
Yeah, just to jump in.
I can't let you leave me behind.
I mean, yeah, there are people that get weirded out by eating and or drinking in video, but hey, this is the video podcast. It's going to have to happen. And look, the answer is not as many episodes as it could have been if you had this set up from day one.
Yeah, I mean, that's true. You might not even know how many times I'm drinking from a protein shake when it was just the radio.
There's a few times I could absolutely tell.
Oh, that's probably true. Eating, drinking, smacking my lips.
Yeah, clearly. There's a few times where you guys had boneless buffalo wings on the show, and I'm just like, I'm sitting over here on the other side of being like, well, they're still swallowing. Okay, there's this pause because they're eating. Oops, just shoved a piece of chicken in your mouth. Uh-oh.
We're nothing if not professional, Dave.
And back in those days, since we didn't have individual mics, you really couldn't help but pick up any ambient noise like chewing and whatnot. Now, granted, you can still hear it if I'm right up next to it, but if I chew a foot this way, not audible anymore.
Nope, not at all.
We have a better setup in place, except when Skype and OBS conspire to fuck me in my ass. I said I wasn't going to go into the rant. I'm not. The title of this episode, if there were one, was going to have to do with this whole joke in the top, which is a repeat. I've changed some of these things around, but in this case, it's kind of a jack-of-all-trades episode. We're going to go into a few different topics, kind of rapid fire, instead of focusing on some longer ones like we have been. And what better place to start, just as we did last week when it didn't last. The story has just continued to evolve since then, so why not talk about Jeopardy's hosting situation? Today, as of recording, this is Tuesday, Mike Richards was now fired completely.
Well, that's hilarious. So for a quick recap, we talked about how it's a weird situation, and this guy probably is an asshole, and he kind of promoted himself to be host of Jeopardy, and we were wondering how he could just go back to being executive producer. It turns out he can't. He's fired.
It was the weirdest thing of just thinking about running through this gamut of guest hosts and trying all these different people and getting all this notoriety for guest hosts when all the while it seemed like, yep, it's going to be me. Just me. I'll do it. And then as soon as he gets named, it's like, oh, here's all this crap then from your history that we're going to start pulling out. Sounds really bad. Also the fact that you just basically said, oh yeah, guys, I'll do it. I'm the executive producer, so I get to do it. And no one likes that. And now you're just fired completely. So what a royal fuck up.
There was a time, it feels eons ago, when he was actually decently well regarded in his guest stint. Mm-hmm. I don't think he was the most popular pick back then. I think there were a lot more people that liked Ken Jennings. And of course, LeVar Burton has had his big groundswell of support. But when you look at the laundry list of guest hosts, I would say he was probably like top 5. People liked his familiarity with the show, and he's had a good cadence to it. He had hosted other game shows that were shitty, but had done it. So people were kind of like, okay, like he might be all right. Boy, are we so far afield from that now, where whatever lingering goodwill he might have had has just been obliterated. And in record time, he was removed as host the same day he was named. The same day. One day.
I feel like had he just started this, like when we knew Trebek was sick, if like he started putting it out there that he was going to take over at that time, get Trebek to sign off on it or something like that, then maybe that would have made the transition really simple and people wouldn't have tried to dig as much. Maybe they would have, but it could have been glossed over a little bit more.
I was going to say that's the issue though, right? Like it's not an issue that he promoted himself, although like we don't like that. A lot of people don't like that. It's just an issue that he said some things. So I wonder, like, what could he have done differently, like, other than going back in time, not saying stupid shit to begin with, like, or was he doomed from the start?
Yeah, I don't think so. I think the stuff that he said, I think he could have gotten past because people have, I mean, everybody's got receipts in a way. So I think the fact that he ran this out the way the way that it did, it pissed a lot of people off by the constant switching. The fact that the people's choice of LeVar Burton never even really was given a chance. And then all of a sudden he picked himself. It just seems like such a power move by a douchey guy. And nobody likes that when it could have been framed so much differently.
And Alex Trebek was, the gregarious Canadian. And while he had his darker side, I don't mean like bad tweets or anything illegal. I just mean like he could sometimes be kind of an ass himself, right? Especially toward like nerds. Weirdly enough, like he was kind of like a jock mentality on the show, which was strange. But look, everybody liked Alex Trebek overall, right? So to go from that to this, and I have to give the internet credit, even though I think this is a practice that we should be steering clear from more often. The one thing they did effectively, whether you like it or not, is they brought this stuff out in waves. So it was, let's unearth these old tweets. Okay, he's responded to those. And now the next day, he has discrimination lawsuits back from when he was helping on The Price is Right. Some of the models were not a fan of him. And, here's this old podcast. So it wasn't just one big thing that he had to address and maybe apologize for as best he could. It was a wave, and that wave swept him away.
See, and that's like the thing. Have we said some things throughout the entire history of this podcast that out of context could maybe be not the greatest thing? Probably all of us. Anybody in history. We don't have any sexual lawsuits, though. Like that's where I think he really gets nailed. It's like it's not hard to just treat people with respect. Tweet whatever you want, but once you start like disrespecting people, like models don't feel comfortable around you. That says a lot to me.
What I can't figure out either is how, I know he's the executive producer. I know that he carries a lot of weight, obviously, but he's not the sole decision maker in this. At least I don't think so. And so you figure there's some sort of background check or some sort of, digging into his past that would have happened. Something along the lines of what like ESPN should have done when they put this ridiculous high school football game where they put this tiny little high school against a powerhouse. And then on air, the commentators are apologizing for, sorry, they told us that they had this little school had a bunch of Division I recruits, but sorry about that. Like these kids are going to get hurt out here. It was disgusting. It's like, I don't know if you heard that story.
Yeah, it was. Awesome. It was a train wreck.
It was awful. But like, how do you not do background checks? Like, it's not that difficult. If internet sleuths can find these things, how can these guys with more resources not find this stuff or not care?
And I think you're absolutely right to an extent. The biggest problem was that once he put himself front and center, this is when this came out. This didn't come out when he was up as a guest host because nobody cared to look that deep into him. So it wasn't like it was just Mike Ritchell's Google and the first result was, oh, fuck, he said terrible thing. Like it took some digging. Not much, clearly. And Sony didn't do its due diligence. That much has become clear. But the only reason people went to these lengths was because they were so unhappy with the decision, which is dangerous. In some cases, that's good if it does remove somebody from a seat of power that they wouldn't otherwise have been removed from. But as we've talked about, it's also dangerous to have your entire catalog of your life splayed out before you at an inopportune time without context or whatever else is coming from that era. So nobody really comes out of this looking good. He's also off of Wheel. He was the EP for Wheel. So both of those, like, Game show staples are now going to have to fill that void. I'm sure that won't be hard. There's plenty of middle-aged white guys who have TV experience who can fill that void.
Talk about a fall from grace. Holy cow. This guy was on top of the world for like 24 hours.
Well, and even so, and the funny thing is, like, no one's going to feel sorry for him. I know he was making obviously good money in this. He's not going to be hurting financially. There's not going to be a single person that's feeling sorry for him when I don't know how he gets another job in this industry again. Like, his career is over.
He has to do the Jake Paul thing. I've thought a lot about this, Dave.
Oh, no.
I've thought a lot about this.
Move on to the next
anyone
topic.
in Hollywood now, if the fans don't like you, you're going to get nailed for. They're going to dig into your past. They're going to expose you. Unless you just lean in completely into the fact that you are an asshole and everybody hates you. And then you can make like millions and millions of dollars boxing people.
You can just, that's the thing. If you're going to be famous, you got to be famous for being outlandish or an asshole, so no one's surprised by what you say. So they can't dig up things on you. It's like, go ahead and dig things up on me.
Who's going to write a story about like McGregor or Jake Paul like saying something mean? Like they do that all. McGregor's like out there threatening families of people he's fighting. Yep. And they're like, oh, that's fine. Let's book him for the next match. It's like,
yeah, that's only the 17th worst thing he's done, so whatever.
Yeah.
I found this tweet of Conor McGregor where he actually punted a cat into a tree. It was really bizarre. Wow, man. That sounds great. I'm a bigger fan of McGregor now. That's weird.
Yeah.
Huh, yeah. I didn't see that coming.
You know, and I was thinking I could do MMA, you know? You figure you take a couple classes, you choose a style. Am I going to be a kicker or like a puncher? Pretty sure that's what they call it.
I would love to see you try. God, that would be so amazing to see you try to go in the ring in the octagon with an MMA fighter.
I'm going to fight Jake Paul. I've just realized it right now. It came to me.
And you're going to lose.
I think there is something to, especially with the fight with Mayweather, where it wasn't super like. I think he was taking it easy on him. I think he would kill me. I know. I think he's actually probably a pretty good fighter. He's going to do to me what he did to Nate Robinson, but like way worse.
Wait, you're talking about Jake Paul now?
Yeah.
Okay, I thought you were talking about McGregor.
Okay. Yeah, of course.
McGregor would kill you.
Jesus. But, maybe he'll say he broke his leg before the match again, though, and it wasn't anything that I did. Maybe I can do that. But, no, I'm talking about Jake Paul. Everybody's like, he's a piece of shit. I'm like, well, yes, but he's also really scary.
Last thing I'll say on this, Sony doesn't have clean hands on this either. Clearly they didn't do the vetting process right, but here's their statement when they fired him today that I thought was fun. Ready? Mike will no longer be serving as EP of Wheel and Jeopardy effective immediately. This is from a Sony executive. Okay. We had hoped that when Mike stepped down from the host position at Jeopardy, it would have minimized the disruption and internal difficulties we have all experienced these last few weeks. That clearly has not happened.
What a bad way what a stupid... So they're not even like saying like he runs counter to the culture we're trying to do. They're not actually saying there's any issue with how he's conducting himself. They're just saying he's a distraction, basically.
Yeah.
That's... Okay.
I mean, at that point, it would have been better just to say, Mike Riches is no longer the host or executive producer of Jeopardy.
How could they have made it worse? And they did.
Yeah, exactly.
And maybe they didn't mean it that way. The internal difficulties phrase you can read a couple different ways, you know? Like, there's a lot of turmoil internally from the decision that they didn't like either, so the employees were mad. Okay. But disruption is just not the word of choice. And, you know, if this was off the cuff, I would be a lot more forgiving, but we know that these apologies are so carefully manicured that shouldn't have ever gotten off the chopping room floor either. So I'm not going to say like Jeopardy's dead or canceled. It's clearly not, but boy, so much luster came off in the last 3 weeks, and it's amazing how one thing can snowball so quickly.
What happened to the other host? Is she fine for as far as we know now? Still?
As far as we know, yeah. She's still going to step in. Miyam Bayalik, however you say her name.
I know there was like the anti-vaxxing thing. I don't know if that snowballed too or if that's...
But the difference is people generally like her overall. So while those have come up, I don't think people were like angry mob about it, you know? It's just kind of, that's unfortunate.
So subjective.
But she had already renounced it before she was named the host, which is also different than the case of Mike Richards. I don't know. I mean, we still don't know who the full-time replacement's going to be. We don't know any of that stuff yet. We still have more to come from this story. God knows where it could turn still.
Isn't it incredible? Alex Trebek died almost 9 months ago.
And, I don't envy the decision there.
Mm-mm.
If they had done guest host while he was still alive, people would have been pissed because they would have been like, well, we want as much Alex as we can get. Because he was game to keep doing it until pretty much when he wasn't able to anymore. It wasn't like he stepped away when he got the diagnosis. He kept going for another 15 months.
Mm-hmm.
So if you take away that time while he's still alive, then you're walking a dangerous line of like everybody being unpopular because they're not him.
Yeah.
But they've bungled whatever the alternative was. That's for damn sure.
Yep.
So next topic, as we go through these rapid fire, is one that's new. We didn't even talk about this last week. I didn't even tell him I was putting it in the planner. I just did.
I was surprised to see it.
It has the same header about overreacting. Last week we talked about Pokemon, which is a subject, of course, Dave is deeply familiar with. After they had that whole Nintendo Direct, about 30 minutes of showing off that, hey, the games actually aren't that bad. Don't need to talk about that again. We'll have the proof in the pudding when the games come out end of the year / January. What we will talk about, however, is that not too long after we reviewed Season 1 of Ted Lasso, we had a strange Christmas episode in Season 2, and then a torrent of counterculture reviews that essentially started to state, is Ted Lasso overrated? Does Ted Lasso actually suck? So let's talk about it, gents. We're not going to actually spoil anything from Season 2, but your overall impressions, the general consensus of the negative reviews is there's not enough conflict. It doesn't have the same overarching cohesiveness that Season 1 did, where it was kind of like following this journey as Ted won the team over. I think some of the criticism is a little bit fair, but we also haven't even seen the full fucking season yet, so...
This is what happens, though. So, there's a lot for me to react to.
Yeah.
A lot of times TV will do this, where Season 1 is sort of crafted, there's a story, they have to have a certain vision for it. And then a lot of times that means Season 2 sort of starts a longer journey that's less like self-contained, one-season-long arc, because they have to sort of plan for the entire end game. So the fact that we haven't seen the narrative thrust isn't quite the same, no, but that's kind of what will happen sometimes in Season 2. Also, my criticisms of the show still persist from Season 1, where I gave it a good review, but otherwise it's the same show still. So what confuses me is people having an issue now, but they didn't have an issue like back. Did they think he was going to go through like a goth stage? Like, they're like, this is way too folksy and happy. I was like, yeah. Did you see Season 1? What made you think this would be any different?
The funny thing is, when I hear these things, I actually agree with the sentiment of this season hasn't had the same feel. I say the most recent episode that came out last Friday, I think it was episode 6 of this season, was the first one that kind of felt again like the first season. And that is a criticism, yes, but in no way is this show overrated. I can see how it's going for a bigger arc. My criticism, if anything else, was that Christmas episode was just weird. I thought it was just weird timing. It broke the flow of the show to me. I kind of wish they would have just released it at Christmas this year and just called it a day as a special. That would have been fine. But even so, the show is a little bit different than for the first season. You can't capture the genie in a bottle twice. So it's still really good. I think the characters are still really likable. They're building towards something new. I don't know how you can say it's overrated unless you just want to be counterculture.
Now, all three of us like this show, so this is not to try and put it out there as a way where it's like, well, it's immune from criticism. All of us had our critiques of Season 1, even in giving it a high score. I just don't necessarily understand well, I mean, I understand why people overreact so quickly, but I don't really understand how you live that way. Like, I saw such criticisms of WandaVision, especially the first couple episodes, which didn't really do much for the overall story. They kind of meandered a bit, but they were setting the stage for something, right? We know in Season 2, Shaun and I haven't seen episode 6 yet. We were going to, something came up. And obviously episode 7 will come out tonight when this airs. But we know there are still some throughfares in this season that have not been resolved. Primarily, Ted rushing towards like a mental breakdown. Again, there's been seeds planted for that, right? So we know we're headed there for sure. Something's going to happen with that. That's not just going to go unresolved for the entire season. But like the fake airline had its whole sponsorship situation come up. Hasn't even been talked about since then. Does that mean it's not coming back? I severely doubt it. Now, if it doesn't, if we reach the end of season 2 and it really never establishes this major conflict of any kind, then by all means, let's go open season on it. But we're halfway through. We don't even know where we're headed for sure yet. This show does throw some curveballs from time to time. So why are we freaking out now?
I just think it's the mentality. It's like the underdog thing of when the show was first getting started. It was like I put Apple TV on the map. So people kind of rooted for it. They thought it was novel and kind of this unique new thing. Now that it's like the King of the Mountain, it got like 20 Emmy nominations or something. Now people are like, oh, we hate it. It's too big. And I think it's just, that's how people are. I didn't really have an issue with the Christmas episode, but I thought it was very Ted Lasso. Santa's real now, so that's strange. I don't know what they're going to do with that. Maybe he'll show up on a future episode. Maybe Ted Lasso will get inducted into like the Elves Workshop or something. But otherwise, I didn't think it was a problem.
I didn't think about that. I forgot about that at the end of the episode. I don't. Just overall, yeah. The idea. I've been someone in the past where I kind of want to rebel against what's popular, and not because I don't want to like it. It's just, I don't know, maybe I like to be a little critical of things, but if I see something that's good, I'm going to enjoy it. I don't care how popular it is. Breaking Bad was that way for me. It's like everyone said how good it was, and then I watched it. I'm like, this is pretty fucking good. Ted Lasso was the same way. I read a lot of things online, read a lot of tweets, read a lot of people talking about it. I'm just like, all right, well, I'll give this show a shot. And I loved it. I thought it was fantastic. And there's reasons that things have a lot of hype built behind them. Sometimes the hype is overrated, and some people just won't enjoy it, and it's not going to mesh with your personality, and that's fine. But something like this, calling it overrated just because it hasn't been the same show it was in the first season, that's just stupid to me.
And I think no matter what, they were going to struggle with that, right? I mean, how can you ever recapture the conceit of episode 1? What possible thing could you introduce into this established world at the end of season 1 that would be on par with what happened at the beginning? I don't think it's possible. Like, I guess I could sit here and brainstorm for hours, and I'm not sure you could come up with something that would be on the par with that, because that's the whole setup. That whole premise sets up season 1. Once you've resolved that premise, where do you go from there? Well, it's a little bit more of a laid-back approach, but to me, especially the ones that seem to be doing this just to be contrarian, like I saw one article where the headline was something akin to, is Ted Lasso too good of a feel-good show? Like, is that what America really needs right now? And I'm like, have you paid attention the last 18 months? That's going to be the approach you take?
Well, now people are like fighting too. They're like, oh, it's so hard for a white guy to be nice. That's one that I've heard a lot of. Like
what?
But because as white men, we're in a lot of times privileged positions. But then they're taking that a step further and being like, yeah, they have nothing to lose by being nice, as though like being nice is this. I don't know. It was very strange. And then one person had a critique that I didn't agree with the critique, but then this woman responded and was like, "You're just threatened by man who will go down on a woman and put her sexual desires before his own, and that threatens you." I was like, wow, we're going crazy.
Wow.
Anyways, behind the scenes really quick, I saw a message. Now I'm paranoid.
No, it's fine.
Okay.
I saw it.
Okay, good. We're on top of it now.
Yeah.
Okay.
This can't happen to me again. It's heartbreaking.
I can see the stuff. It's fine.
I have one last point about Ted Lasso, and then I need to know what the hell you're talking about. Actually, one thing about season 1, season 2, I heard an interview with Brendan Hunt, who plays Coach Beard. I don't remember if I mentioned it before, but they actually wrote season 1 and season 2 kind of in concert with one another. They didn't have season 1 and then realized that season 2 was going to get renewed, and then said, oh shit, now what do we do? They kind of wrote it all together. So they had already started doing season 2 when season 1 was still not even really in the public conscious. So they kind of had a vision for it already. So I trust that they were not going to be like, oh no, we're really big, now what do we do? And get all nervous and overthink things. They kind of already had their vision. So I don't know. They said they're going to be a 3-season show. I think any other show throughout history of TV would have been like, 3 seasons? No. We're going to milk this for as much as you possibly can. That's not what this show does. So I've got confidence.
You gotta wait until the end. There's no guarantee it's gonna end well. I will say. Glee is a great example. Had a great first arc, and then they were like, "Oh, we got renewed," and it just like fell off a cliff. But the whole point is you kind of got to wait to see the entire finished product before you just start saying this is now the worst show and Ted Lasso sucks.
And it would be fine if the primary point of it was just to like express concern, like, well, I don't really necessarily love the way this is headed or this kind of stuff. But if you really did like season 1, I have a hard time imagining you just being like, well, I'm off the ship. That's it. Halfway through season 2, I love season 1. I'm done. It's over. So to me, it's like either you were disingenuous in your review of season 1, or you're just doing this for attention now in season 2. But what do I know? Next up, we're going to talk a little bit about NBA 2K22. Now, this is sort of a backdoor way for us to talk about basketball, but last time they released basically the first batch of player ratings, and there was a short trailer of like 30 seconds. We've expanded on that a little bit in the interim. There was a full trailer of like 2 minutes. Booker was like the first player you saw in it almost.
Ooh.
I know.
What was his score?
We don't know what his rating was. He was in the
yeah.
trailer.
Still, okay.
Yeah. Showed the Suns arena and like with the new scoreboard and everything. Looked nice. There was a 7-second gameplay video that was making the rounds on Twitter today of Doncic hitting a step back, which,
makes me laugh.
Yeah, but it showed the new shot meter, which they basically stole from NBA Live, which is funny because NBA Live is dead.
It really is a game. He's hitting a step back. Live the fantasy of Doncic actually hitting a step back 3.
Mm-hmm.
Cool.
Yeah,
Great.
with Ben Simmons on him, not contesting.
By the way, last episode, for those of you that missed out, because you all did, all we did was trash Luka Doncic for this entire section.
Really did.
Mm-hmm.
I was trying to talk these guys down, like, he's okay, he's a nice guy, teammates like him a whole lot, but they just trashed him. I only had nice things to say.
See, he can't even lie without stumbling, so that tells you.
He didn't maintain eye contact the entire time either. We just knew it was a lie the whole time.
Rude.
But we could still slam him if we want. Still, they did release a whole bunch of notes on gameplay today, which is of interest to us because we're all going to play this game. In theory, we're going to do it for the channel when it comes out. But I'm always torn. I've been playing this series for a long time. I think I started with 2K7. So I go back a ways, and every year the developers always talk about all these new and improved bits of the game, whether it's little animations or tendencies or AI. And today was no different. The first thing they talk about was like defense, and there's new contesting and new blocking systems, and they've tried to make it so that you don't like get hovered away from the guy you're guarding because their stats are better than yours. Like you get almost like pushed by this invisible wall, and they've taken out some of the speed-based glitches. They put in some new badges. I guess my question to you guys is, since I'm dropping this topic on you unexpectedly as well, does any of that lip service matter, or is it just going to be I got to play it and see for myself?
Well, I mean, yeah, I do have to play it and see for myself, but over the course, like if you were to play 2K16 and then you play 2K20, it probably starts to feel like a little bit different, but I highly doubt, maybe you, Chris, you've played it by far the most. You might be able to tell a little bit. I doubt it's going to be something I can really tell.
The only reason I'm like super excited for this game in particular is 2 reasons. One, the Suns made the finals last year and are going to be prominently featured in a high-rated team in this game. And 2, it's on the next gen. So like the fact that I can play a next gen game on this system, that's really like kind of the first real next gen design sports game that I'm going to play. I'm looking forward to it for that reason. As far as gameplay changes and stuff, I do so much of it by feel. I don't really still to this day understand the shot stick. I don't really understand.
That's what I'm saying.
Stuff like that. I don't understand how to use it properly.
They always are like, we've innovated the shot sticks. It's like, cool. So the 5 people that use that can really enjoy it. It's like, it sucks.
I mean, I've learned a couple of things on it, but still to this day, I don't know. My brain doesn't work that fast. I don't know how to use that properly in all situations. So it doesn't matter to me how much you innovated that. I just like the idea of like, I'm not going to stick to a person because I run by them, or, it's easy to stay. I don't know. There's just little things that make it flow better. And that's all like
little things like that, like, tendencies and whatever, who gives a shit. But it like, I remember, I think it was 2K20. I was like, I couldn't pass without it getting stolen. Like no matter what I did. And I don't think it was me, because now playing 2K21, it feels like normal. Like sometimes I make a stupid pass, it gets stolen, but it's not every time I pass the ball, I like throw it into someone's head and it gets turned over.
I'm a little bit torn on this because like you said, I think the proof's in the pudding. When we have our hands on it, we'll see truly what some of those new animations are. Maybe they'll have a third cheerleader routine. There's plenty of things that could happen. Who can say, right? I'm a little bit, maybe it's just me getting an old man, get off my lawn as I get older, but like, what do people expect from this on a year-to-year basis? Could they do more? I don't think there's an argument there. Sure, you can argue that they could be doing more, especially in the way of features or new modes. A lot of that becomes stale. But 2K at its core has a pretty solid basketball experience. It could be better in several ways, no question. But what are they going to do? Reinvent the wheel? So especially now, as games have gotten so advanced, when we were talking about NHL 93, yeah, there's a lot of different things they could have added to the game back then because it was 2D representation of a game and there was only so much you could do, right? I think we're reaching a point where until we get significant AI advancements, this is kind of going to be it.
Well, but that brings up a good point, actually. I think they should reinvent the wheel, okay? In the sense of like, yeah, you have the experience, but... And it's a business, so they're not going to do this because they make hand over fist money every time. But because there's not those advancements every year, what would be so bad with really working on a truly next gen experience and release like big time roster updates and throw it, you don't have to do it for free, you make it DLC, it can be the core game, but then work on something like in the town, that whatever stupid city that they do every time. I still don't know why they haven't done a basketball RPG yet. They've sort of gotten close. They dabbled in with the career mode a little bit. But to me, that would be like the next experience for this. Something a little more immersive, a little more interesting than just show up, you play basketball, you go home into this lifeless town where like nobody inhabits it and you're there for no reason. Put some more animations. The thing where they're walking and they're like, yeah, this thing. And he's like, oh, yeah. When they're talking out of the timeout, that's been the same for like 3 years. It's like, update it.
They did have one new one in the trailer. Now, this is really like the only one they're going to put in, but they had like Dylan Brooks giving Steph Curry some major side eye as they crossed paths going to a huddle in a timeout. I was like, okay. Just because we've seen the other ones so often, I was like, all right, now if that's the only new one, it's not going to do a whole lot, but at least it's something, So maybe there's more than they've shown so far, or maybe it is going to be like the minimum and we're just going to be disappointed.
If they played up into those sort of tendencies where players have rivalries, don't like each other, Pat Beverly is an asshole to everybody, like that would be cool. Luka Doncic, like the coach, maybe you can animate like Mark Cuban coming down and like having a talk to Luka. Like, I don't know. That stuff would be really cool. But it's the same, like you said, 2 cheerleader routines and 6 timeout animations.
And 1 bike guy at halftime.
Yeah. And like lifeless fucking Shaq and Kenny and all them. Like, it's so bad.
They've done such a good job of mimicking players' physical tendencies or pregame ritual or something like that. Like, how many times have we seen like, yep, that's a Steph Curry shot. Yep, that looks like what Devin Booker shoot. They've done a really good job of the gameplay thing. But that is that next level that you're talking about, a next gen experience where maybe, a player hits a shot that they shouldn't have hit, like right in somebody's face, and the defender does give them side eye or something like that. Or, there's the old clip of Kobe Bryant that hit a crazy shot in Grant Hill's face in the playoffs, and he gave Alvin Gentry a pat on the butt as he ran by. Like, if they put animations like that situationally in the game, like as a big moment, and they have that animation, that would be a really cool experience that really sucked me into the game even more.
Yeah. And to do like The Sims meets NBA 2K, I'm sure, and all these unique animations, it's not an easy thing. I know that, but take a little bit of time. You don't have to... I don't think. I'm not a 2K stakeholder. I just don't think you have to do yearly updates where nothing is really being changed. And then you have like Madden, where apparently Madden 22 is like a bug-ridden mess. And you're like, how... To the same point of like, what do you expect to be innovated? How can you possibly drop the ball that bad? It should be like the same. You don't even change anything.
I feel like they just need to take an old NBA 2K engine, like the previous year's engine that they already built, and then like have a different development team develop the RPG side of the game. So like the basketball is less. And so you still have your annual release of something, and then you just have a completely different team. Like, can we team up with Rockstar and make a like that type of experience with basketball? That'd be amazing.
Yeah, Rockstar used to put out games every year. Now it's like every 8.
Yeah. So, stick some of their development team on. That'd be fantastic if we could do that.
Well, and I know like Assassin's Creed did this. They were doing yearly releases and I think still selling pretty well. And they're like, you know what, from a creative standpoint, this is stupid. The quality is suffering. We're going to take a step back and it's going to be like every 2 to 3 years. And the product is better. Wow.
I gotta say, I do wish the NBA 2K would, and they never will, and I understand because of money, but I wish they would distance the my career and my player. Like, if you could have two separate experiences would be really cool, because the my player stuff that you do online, I've only recently played online a very tiny, tiny little bit within like the city or town. Like 2K21 has this sprawling city that takes forever to get to one side or the other of it, which is stupid. But like I very, very rarely do any of that stuff. So the idea of like, I just want to play my player and not be, I don't want to be bound by the fact that I have to go to practice 50 times to let my overall rating get higher than a 90. I don't know. It's just kind of dumb. I get the idea of keeping it together, but also I just wish I had a separate experience.
Yeah, you're not alone in that sentiment, and it's a little bit frustrating for me, somebody who played a lot of those career modes, because now I will play the rookie bit because that has its unique story each year, right? So you sometimes are in high school, sometimes in college, sometimes overseas, sometimes all of the above, and eventually you play a rookie season that has a lot of its own little unique milestones along the way. And then game 1 of season 2 starts, and I'm like,
here I am.
Yeah.
I've been here before. I'm still not very good. I'm probably like a 75 overall. So there's things I could work towards, but I've already done that so many times. Now, I imagine that they must have statistics that are like, yeah, like 80% of people don't even make it past season 1. So how much can we really spend time innovating content for them if they're not even going to see it? I don't envy that situation that they're in. But as somebody who is a pretty diehard fan of the series, I can understand the frustration because it's tough.
Isn't that chicken and egg, though? Like, I feel like 80% of people don't make it past season 2. Well, yeah, because why would I at that point, you know?
Yeah,
like,
right.
If I play, like, especially previous versions of the game, like, there was a version of the game, I think it was 2K15 or something like that, where, like, you literally couldn't skip games. You had to play all 82 games. And it's like, good Lord, of course that takes people a whole year.
Yeah.
Well, it's the whole thing. There's like with movies, they're like, this has been a bad summer. And it's like, well, because the movies suck. Like, it's not some big intellectual whatever or like the psychology of moviegoers. It's just make better movies and people are going to go to the theaters. It's make a more compelling career mode. People are going to want to see it. Yeah. I would love to see whether it's baked into the end of a campaign or like this is just a campaign. But like, what if we got a story of like someone at the end of their career and like a Last Dance type thing where they're trying to end it and there's all this adversity and you have to work through that. Like, they've almost pigeonholed themselves because it's always sort of a rookie. It's always the beginning of a career, whether it's a rookie or a free agent who's trying to come and build his way back up. But it's like always the same. If you change it up, you have so many more opportunities.
They've never gotten as high as they did with Jackson Ellis. And that's a disappointment to me. He was the very first rival character, and he was just an asshole, and you loved to hate him, and you loved hanging 50 on him, and he would talk shit, and you'd put him in his place. And that was simple enough, but it worked, by God. It's the same problem I have with Pokemon rivals. They haven't beaten the one from Gold Silver because that guy was a jackass. So every time you had to kick his ass, you were always looking forward to it. I'm not saying you can do that every time, but they could expand on it. They could change it up. Like, make it the last season of somebody's career, like Shaun said. And then if you want to keep playing the career mode, then have him enter the NBA draft as a 21-year-old. Is anybody really going to be distracted by the cognitive dissonance there? I don't think so. And even if it is a little bit, you're going to be like, whatever, now I can play my career because I wouldn't want to start as a 38-year-old. So that makes sense. I don't know.
I also wish they'd bring back the My GM mode. Like, they had that for a couple years where it was like a story mode with the GM. It was stupid in many ways, but I also loved it.
What was the story that had, oh God, that kid, Haley Joel Osment?
Oh.
He wasn't a kid in the game, so I probably like threw you off.
He was like your
bit,
agent or something.
Yeah. That was a good story. I liked all that.
Yeah, and there was the Michael B. Jordan one where he was like your best friend. That one was pretty good. It was nice having like a run-in mate, like we're going to be a duo. That was pretty unique, and it worked better than most of them have. But there was also freaking and vibing.
The worst thing I've ever seen.
I don't know. What about the president of basketball?
Yeah, that's not great either.
As much as I love like Black Klansman, I just like I can never see Spike Lee the same way again after that story mode. And I feel bad because like you look behind the scenes and they seem to be having a lot of fun with it. They're putting a lot of energy and time in it, and the end product was just so bad.
Shaun, if I were to die in a tragic car accident, would you cry as hard as Freak did over Vic's death?
I don't. Here's the
Vic.
thing, Dave. It meant so little to me. I don't even remember. I don't know your reference. Did he cry a lot, or did he not show any emotion? I don't know, because it made no impact on me.
It made none. It was so stupid.
Okay.
It's so
yeah,
bad.
that's what I thought.
If I could go on my deathbed and I think back on the worst characters in media that I've ever experienced, Vic is going to have to be in the top 5, no matter what happens for the rest of my life.
Yeah.
I don't even know what the redeeming quality was supposed to be. Like, I guess he was pretty loyal to you when he wasn't stabbing you in the back. I guess. That's the best I have.
He rebounded for you, Chris. Come on.
Yeah, and he
Important.
was a decent artist, I guess, if you're into that kind of rap. That's all I've got. All right, our final topic in our whirling dervish tour of different things this week is unchanged from last week. I can only update this story in by saying that I took Shaun's recommendation that none of you got to hear, and I picked up Slay the Spire. I have not touched it yet because I'm finishing Ace Attorney. I bought it for half price on the Switch store, which is a good deal. It was on sale, and then realized it was on Game Pass for free. So, whoops. But nonetheless, we talked about roguelikes in general, and I still want to bring up the point, even though we talked about it then. I'm very fascinated to find out how much I really like this genre. I am enjoying the examples I've had of it. I just don't know if it's going to be something that is like the genre. Is this why I'm playing this game, or is it because it's this type of game that also happens to be a roguelike? I don't know yet, and I'm intrigued to find out.
Well, and I launched into this thing of like, I'm afraid for my soul that roguelikes are like my favorite genre of game. And I will say, to answer your question a little bit, Chris, like time will tell, of course, but I've played a roguelike now in very different genres, and I've liked every one. You have the card game playing one that Slay the Spire is, which is just like every deck building RPG is like, that's what I loved about Gwent. It's everything to me. It's my soul. It's my Slay the Spire is my spirit animal. But then you have like a shooter and Returnal. You have Binding of Isaac is like what isometric action game, as is Hades. So there's something about going through a run and building a character from randomly generated relics. Sometimes you build a really good synergy. Sometimes you just get one really awesome relic, and sometimes you get a bunch of shit, and you have to try to figure it out. And like, there's fun to be had in that too. Most of them can be done in an hour or so. So there's just like a lot of replayability. Tony XX is a great example. There's a side-scrolling shooter, Mega Man style. So I don't know. I think they're really good, and I still think Dave should play Returnal. Both for exposure to roguelike and because it's just a great game.
I think you should start with another one, though. And we've kind of bowed this back and forth, but I think Hades is a better fit for him. And if he really likes Hades, then I think Returnal is definitely on the menu as well. But
I'm debating. You might be right. I will consider that.
I think he would latch on to that more. And then if he does enjoy that style of game, because it does fit the gameplay feedback loop that I think he likes, if that's a hit with him, then I think Returnal's next on the list.
But there's a little bit of like a horror vibe for Returnal. Like sort of like creepy psychological thriller stuff.
Which I guess Dave likes more than I do. I like the fact that we're not letting him talk. This is great.
Yeah, well,
he's in the room.
He's never played a roguelike.
But he does like Resident Evil 4. He did like Dead Space, right? So, I mean...
Yeah, it was okay.
Well, never mind then.
Did you play Dead Space 1?
I did.
Did you play Dead Space 2?
No, I didn't get that one.
That is one at the very... That just shot up my list of recommendations for you because you've already played the first one. I didn't know you played the first one.
I played it like 10 years ago, but
if you made it through the first one and you were like, this was, okay, this was fine, play the second one. It's so much better. It's scarier, but the story's really good. They nail the atmosphere. The narrative drive is excellent.
It's sort of akin to the jump from Mass Effect 1 to 2 to me.
Yeah.
It's similar, where it's like, 1's good, it's solid, then you play 2 and you're like, oh, I guess we're never going back then.
Dave, we're trying to recommend a game to you, and you're just like, what could be more important than this?
Viewers can tell. They can see just at the very corner of the frame, but listeners cannot tell.
Apologies.
One other thing I will point out while Dave sorts out his personal life is, Shaun, there's a game that we need to play, I think, as a group. Maybe just the 4 people who live here.
Returnal?
No. Not every answer to every question is Returnal.
Is it Witcher 3?
No. There's no 4-player co-op in that. That Rogue
Yes.
Heroes game, Ruin of Tassos, also has roguelike elements to it. It's sort of like a Link to the Past with roguelike. And I did enjoy that one as well. I didn't think of it last week when we were talking about it, but that's a third one on my list that I've already gone through and been like, yeah, I enjoy this format quite a bit. I think Hades is the best one for Dave.
I think Returnal. So, Dave, you have 2 really good recommendations because I also think Hades is a good pick. Like, you can't go wrong with Hades. I've talked about Hades was right up there with my game of the year last year. I don't know. Time is like whatever.
Yeah, whenever it came out.
I can't.
Yep.
But Returnal's also very good, and a pro would be it's really maximizing. You would play Returnal on your PS5 and be like, nothing demonstrates the power of my new console more than this game. So that's cool. But it's up to you. You can't really go wrong with either one.
I mean, I've pre-ordered 2K22, so that's gonna come first. Sorry,
I try sometimes. I'm trying to expand your horizons, broaden your perspective, and you're like,
nope.
Basketball. I gotta get Luka.
Basketball is my favorite.
Oh no, I've got a dunk on Luka. I was just playing 2K21 yesterday and shut Luka down and scored 42 points. It was great. Felt good.
All right. I mean,
well, you're doing the Lord's work, so that's fair. That's important.
Yeah,
that's fair.
Anyways, roguelikes are cool. You're hopping on the hottest trends right here on the Team Objection podcast. Roguelikes, pretty cool. Man,
there are fans of Rogue, though, like the original roguelike, that are like angry at all this. They're like, it's not a roguelike, it's a rogue light, because apparently in the original game, you lose everything. There's no like sort of building or unlocking like anything on the way, which is one of my favorite parts of a roguelike.
Mm-hmm.
It's just like you just start over. The only thing you take with you is your knowledge of what you've done before that. I'm like, okay, like that's fine. You guys and your like Dark Soul get good people. Just like go over there. I don't want to see you. Go in the corner.
There's also people who really have a strange understanding of the genre, because like I would argue the Diablo series is a roguelike before its time, but a lot of there's not quite the same loop to it, but it's still about like going through dungeons, sometimes multiple times, building up, getting better gear, being able to tackle future promises. Like it has a whiff of a roguelike to it. It wasn't like this just came out of nowhere. There are some people who are like, yeah, I played Hades. Hades is the gold standard, and it's a phenomenal game, but it's not like Hades invented roguelikes. Like,
yeah, that's the different. Yeah,
that's like saying like Spyro the Dragon invented platformers. Like, I don't think that's not how that works. Spyro's great. Okay, I like Spyro, but
Spyro's cool.
Let's pay respect, shall we?
Spyro innovated the platformer in the 3D space.
Yeah.
Like, there's one that probably did it a lot more and better than Spyro.
Alrighty, well, that's pretty much the end. I didn't update this slide. Damn it, I knew I missed something. Damn. Well, next week is going to be 497, but it won't be on September 2nd. It'll be on the 9th. And then there won't be a show, I don't think, the following week. And then we're still working our way towards 500. Pushed back a week now because of all the stupid glitches. But yeah, we're coming up on it. I have about 60% of that show planned. I talked about it more at length in the show that didn't happen, but it's about 60% done, and I know what's happening for the other 40%.
Is Cody joining us, or is that like a surprise?
He can if he wants.
We'll touch him tonight.
We usually have extra people on those shows, and I think as long as his schedule's free, he'll do it. So we'll see how it goes. 500.
Have you ever kind of stopped to think about that for a moment? It's kind of weird.
I have briefly, and it's kind of like, damn. Like, we did 400, and we did a musical quiz on it, and like we did for 300, and like 400 is a lot of episodes, but it just feels different. This is understandably a big milestone, right? Like this, and then the next one's 1,000, basically.
Well, it's weird to me that 400 doesn't seem all that long ago.
But it was 2 years.
But at the same time, like I can remember what we did for 200 and 300, and like each big milestone, we were like in such different places with like a different cast and different circumstances, and it's kind of wild. So anyways, looking forward to 500 and then 600.
Alrighty, so thanks for tuning in. In between episodes, you can find us at our website, objectionnetwork.com, or at youtube.com/objectionnetwork for new videos 7 days a week. We're playing the Ace Attorney game. It's pretty fun. See you next time.